Well, another tragedy has occurred here in the United States, and honestly, I don't know what the answer is. I know that there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things, and some of the things are good, some of the things are just outrageous, and some of the things are lies, some of the things are truths. I mean, it's hard to even know what's true anymore in our country. Um, I don't have answers. I have questions. I have ideas. Um, and I just want to kind of go through them, and maybe in a civilized way, we can. Maybe you can help me. Maybe I can share some things that maybe you didn't know. I don't know. But this is the 306 podcast. On Wednesday, February 14th, it was also Ash Wednesday here in the United States. In a high school in Florida, a, a mentally unstable man, kid, an 18, 19-year-old kid, shot and killed at the time of this recording 17 other people, and injured at least 14 others before he was taken into custody. And obviously your heart just, it aches. As a father of two little boys, um, I can't even, I can't imagine. I try to imagine the grief. I try to imagine what these families, what these kids are going through, and every time I try to put myself in that situation, it's just awful. And immediately, as a Christian, I I want to pray for these people. And cuz honestly, what else can I do as a individual in a northeast state, in a small town? What can I do individually other than pray for these people, pray for our country? We've gotten to a place where, well, let me back up. Our culture is such that you can't even say that your thoughts and prayers are with these people without someone commenting and writing back or whatever, and saying your prayers aren't enough, or berating you for even praying or for believing in God. It's becoming tougher and tougher to cope with this environment that we're allowing ourselves to be sucked into. Should there be more laws on guns? Probably. Are guns a means of which a lot of these tragic events are carried out? Yes. But is it the gun? Is the gun the evil thing? I mean, I'm old enough to remember 9/11. I'm old enough to remember um, the Oklahoma City bombing. And guns weren't used. And in the case of 9/11, thousands of people lost their lives. And I don't necessarily think that this is a gun issue. I think that the fact that a gun is being used, it might be part of the problem, but it's not the problem. And I don't think it helps when you have these reports coming out just minutes after this shooting, polarizing this, saying there's been 18 mass shootings at schools already this year, and we're only 7 weeks into the year. I have a list of the 18 school shootings as counted by every town, and I consider this misinformation. And I think that by doing this, you're actually taking away from the real mass shootings. I just want to read through them quickly. I don't want to spend a ton of time, but this is what they're considering as school shootings. I thought it said what they considered these as mass shootings. But January 3rd, East Olive Elementary School in St. John's, Michigan, a man committed suicide in a parking lot at a school. Although the building was not being used as a school, it had been shut down about 6 months earlier. A man committed suicide, and they're counting that as a school shooting. January 4th, New Start High School, Seattle, an unidentified shooter fired shots into a building. I'm assuming that's a school building. No injuries were reported. January 10th, Grayson College in Denison, Texas. Student unintentionally fired a bullet from a gun legally possessed by an instructor that struck a wall. No injuries reported. January 10th, Coronado Elementary School in Sierra Vista, Arizona. A student committed suicide in a bathroom. No other injuries. Same day, January 10th, California State University in San Bernardino. Gunshots, most likely fired from an off-campus. Most likely fired from off-campus. Hit a campus building window. No injuries. January 15th, Wiley College, Marshall, Texas. Shots fired from a car in a parking lot, with one shot hitting a window of a residence hall. No injuries reported. January 20th, Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. One student wounds another student during an argument at a sorority party. January 22nd, Italy High School, Italy, Texas. Student opens fire in a cafeteria, wounding one student before firing at another student and missing. That's a shooting. That's, I think, one, and we've already listed a half dozen. January 22nd, Net Charter High School in Gentilly, Louisiana. Unknown person fires shot at students standing in a parking lot. No injuries from the gunshots. January 22nd, Marshall County High School, Benton, Kentucky. 2 students left dead in a mass shooting by student. More than a dozen students injured. Again, that's an actual shooting. Murphy High School, January 25th, Mobile, Alabama. Student fired into the air outside of school after an argument. No injuries. January 29th, Dearborn High School, Dearborn, Michigan. Individual ejected from a game for fighting was shot at in a parking lot. No injuries. January 31st, Lincoln High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Man fatally wounded in a fight in a parking lot. Man, not student, in a parking lot. February 1st, Salvador B. Castro Middle School in Los Angeles, California. Student unintentionally fires a gun in a classroom, wounding 2 students. Unintentional, but, still a shooting. February 5th, Oxon Hill High School, Oxon Hill, Maryland. I think I said that right. Student wounded in a parking lot during an apparent robbery. February 5th, Harmony Learning K-12, Mapleton, Minnesota. Student pressed trigger on school liaison officer's gun. No injury. Another accidental thing. February 8th, Metropolitan High School, New York City. Student fired gun into floor in classroom. No injuries. And February 14th, Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, an ex-student commits a mass shooting, killing 17. So out of all of those, 4, maybe 5, you could say are mass shootings, are intentional shootings. So there's 18 in which a gun was fired. So there's 18 incidents in which a gun was fired in a school or on a school property or affected a school property. 3 of them were actually considered mass shootings. And so this headline that's saying there's been 18 mass shootings in the United States already this year, that's misleading. But of the other shootings, 9 involved no deaths, no gunshot injuries. 2 were suicides with no other injuries, including one at a closed school. 3 of them were unintentional, even though one of them caused an injury. So I don't think that helps. I think the fact that there were 3 mass shootings in there, that's enough. That should be enough information to know that there's an issue. But again, a gun didn't go into these schools and hurt these kids and kill these kids. I think the big case is, why did this kid feel the need? Why did he feel the answer was to go in and murder people? Why was that the answer for him? I believe that the mental health epidemic in this country is far more dangerous than the gun epidemic. I'm not saying we shouldn't do something about guns, and I believe that there should be a background check. There should be a mandatory wait period in between the background check and the purchase of a gun, all that kind of stuff. Ex-felons shouldn't be able to get that. And that's not the point. The mental health of this country, the mental health issue that is caused by the arguing, the bickering, the back and forth, the not even being able to express your opinion without being humiliated and made fun of on the internet. I mean, I watch some of these news segments, and you have the person who is anti-gun, anti all of this stuff, and then you have the person that's pro-gun, pro all this stuff, and all they do is bicker back and forth. That does not solve anything. That doesn't help. If anything, it makes common sense people, and I try to be as common sense as possible, it leaves me feeling hopeless. Like, no one's ever going to be able to do anything, because this is all that people want to do. They just want to point fingers. And it makes me even wonder if they actually care about these kids, if they care about what's happening. They're just out there to push an agenda, and by any means possible, by putting out ridiculous headlines. I've read conflicting reports saying that gun deaths are really not even on the rise, but the one thing that is on the rise is drug overdoses. Kids that feel the need that drugs are the answer to their problems. I mean, in the year 2000, or I'm sorry, in 1999, there were just over 11,000 drug overdoses in the United States. Or, I'm sorry, in 1999, there were just over 11,000 men who overdosed and 6,000, just under 6,000 women who overdosed. Jump ahead to 2016, 41,558 men overdosed on drugs, 22,074 women. That's almost 64,000 people that died from drug overdoses. And you want to continue on the mental health. Children. Anxiety disorders affect 25% of children between the ages of 13 and 18. Research shows that untreated children with anxiety disorders are at higher risk to perform poorly in school, miss out on important social experiences, and engage in substance abuse. Panic disorder affects 6 million of adults, 2.7% of the U.S. population. Social anxiety disorder affects about 15 million adults, or almost 7% of the U.S. population. And with that, 36 of the people with social anxiety disorders experience symptoms for 10 years before they even seek help. Obsessive compulsive disorder. This is part of the thing that people get so obsessed over something that they're willing to go and murder people for it. 2.2 million people. 2.2 million adults. 1/3 of the affected adults first experience symptoms in childhood. So maybe it has something to do with how we're raising children. Maybe it's the fact that we don't raise our children the way that we used to raise kids. We try to raise our kids to be our friends, to be cool, to be hip. I know that those are outdated terms, but we don't discipline our children. We don't instill values or principles in our children. Maybe that's what's causing the social anxieties. Maybe we're treating our children too much like adults, and that's causing them to grow up too fast, but their maturity level does not grow up as quickly as their intellectual level. And so they know the things that they're supposed to be doing. They know the things that they're supposed to be saying. But on the inside, they're not mature enough to understand it. And that causes anxiety. That causes social problems. That causes obsessive compulsive disorders. And that leads to drug use. That leads to people being mentally unstable. Almost every one, if not every one, of the mass shooters over the last however many years had a mental illness, a known mental illness. And depression. Depression is the leading cause of disability in the United States for ages 15 to 44. Major depressive disorder affects more than 16.1 million adults, or about 6.7% of the population age 18 and over in a given year. Suicide rates. Nearly suicide rates per 100,000 have increased to a 30-year high. Substance abuse, particularly in opioids, have become an epidemic. Disability awards for mental disorders have dramatically increased since 1980, and the Department of U.S. Veterans Affairs is struggling to keep up with the surge of PTSD victims. There's a lot of issues facing our country, and like I said, I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at guns. I'm a gun owner, and I pray that I never have to use that gun against a human being. And so I want to know. I want to know what are some real, actual ideas. Because the thing is, robbing a bank is illegal. And we still have people robbing banks. Murdering someone is illegal. And we still have people murdering people. We have people that murder people with hammers in this country. We are seeing more people using their vehicles as forms of murder, as a weapon to commit murder, just running people over. It's a mental health issue. And I think we're tiptoeing around it because it's a sensitive topic. But I think that it's the conversation that really needs to be had. If we can prevent people with mental illnesses from getting guns, if we can get people with mental illness the help that they need, then maybe we can start looking at other things down the road once we've accomplished that. I would love to hear your comments, and I'm sure that we'll be getting comments probably from both sides that are just awful. But if you outlaw guns, will it stop mass shootings? Or will they figure out another alternative? Why don't we just prevent people that have mental illness from getting guns? Why don't we try to fix our culture? Not saying, again, I've said this numerous times, I'm not saying that we don't do something, but can we actually look at what the problem is with the number of people that own guns in this country? If it's just a gun issue, there'd be a whole lot more tragedy than what there is, and one tragedy is too many. But let's try to start a debate. Let's try to start a dialogue. I don't want a debate. I want dialogue. But thanks for watching, and look forward to conversing with you about this again sometime soon.